Picture yourself fast asleep, dead to the world, drooling on the pillow, snoring away, completely unaware of anything happening around you. In every meaningful biological sense, you are defenseless. Now picture that same scene happening not in your bedroom, but inside a tent, a flimsy sheet of nylon, almost laughably thin, separating you from a forest crawling with animals that could kill you without breaking a sweat. Lions, bears, wolves, leopards, creatures that can pick up your heartbeat from across a clearing, catch your scent from a mile out, and see clean through total darkness while you lie there with your eyes shut. And yet morning comes, and you're still there. Still breathing, every single time. Why? Stop and actually sit with that question for a second. An unconscious human is basically just meat, slow, silent, defenseless meat that can't fight, can't flee, and won't even register danger until it's already too late. You'd expect predators to be prowling around campsites nightly like it's a free buffet. They're not. Almost never. And the explanation isn't simple. It's never just one factor. It's a stack of overlapping reasons, each stranger than the last, that together reveal something like an unspoken truce between people and the wild. A truce. Older than civilization, older than farming, older than anything we'd normally call human history. This goes deep. Let's get into it. Start with the part that sounds arrogant, but is really just hard science. You are terrifying. Not you, personally, sitting there reading this, you're probably harmless. But humans, as a species, register to predators as something genuinely, deeply, evolutionarily frightening. It's not obvious from the outside. We've got no claws, no real speed, nothing close to predator, level strength, and our night vision is garbage. On paper, we look like a failed experiment in animal design. And yet, in 2019, researchers at UC Santa Cruz ran an experiment that says otherwise. They played recordings of ordinary human voices. Just people chatting, near mountain lions, pumas, cougars, whatever you want to call them, in California's Santa Cruz mountains. The cats bolted. They fled at rates matching, and often exceeding, how fast they fled the sound of barking dogs. Keep in mind, these are animals capable of dropping a full-grown deer without much effort, dragging a kill up a steep slope like it's nothing. Apex predators in every practical sense. And a recorded conversation sent them running. That wasn't a fluke. The same study found pumas would walk away from kills, food they had already caught, and were actively eating. The moment a human voice showed up nearby, they left a meal on the ground rather than stay close to that sound. That's a massive survival cost. Abandoning a kill is essentially throwing away the calories spent catching it, with nothing to show for it. They paid that price anyway, because being near humans felt worse than staying hungry. This isn't an isolated finding either. Biologists have clocked similar patterns across continents and species for years. Lions in South Africa's Kruger National Park cut back their movement in zones with heavier human traffic. Tigers across India steer clear of villages, even when those villages sit right in the heart of good habitat. Jaguars in the Amazon basin have reshaped their travel routes specifically to avoid spots where people show up regularly. These aren't animals incapable of attacking us. They're animals that, collectively, over countless generations, have concluded it isn't worth the risk. And the root cause of that conclusion is one of the bleaker facts in natural history. We've hunted large predators so relentlessly, for so long, that we've literally rewritten their genetic code. Consider the timeline. Humans have been active hunters for roughly 2 million years. We drove mammoths to extinction. We scarred megafauna off entire continents. Giant sloths, woolly rhinos, saber-toothed cats, cave bears. Species that weathered ice ages, gone within a few thousand years of humans showing up. In North America alone, we pushed wolves to the brink across the whole landmass and wiped mountain lions out of the entire eastern half of the continent. We shot them, trapped them, poisoned them so thoroughly and for so long that the survivors today descend directly from the individuals who were most cautious around us. That's not poetic language. That's literal natural selection at work. Any lion bold enough to approach a human camp got killed. Any wolf that targeted livestock or settlements got hunted down. The ones that kept their distance, that treated us as a thing to avoid rather than engage, were the ones who lived long enough to reproduce and pass that wariness along. Over thousands of generations, caution stopped being a learned behavior and became hardwired instinct. The default setting for every large predator coexisting with humans today. So when a leopard catches your scent at night, something ancient activates deep in its nervous system. Not a conscious thought. It's not reasoning through human history in real time. But an old, inherited signal flashing, stay away, don't engage, keep moving. That signal is the inheritance of every ancestor who survived a close call with humans. It's a kind of biological memory, and it runs bone deep. Harzer, now let's talk about your smell now. You've probably never given it much thought, surrounded as you are by other humans constantly. You've gone completely nose, blind to yourself. But to a predator with a sense of smell that's anywhere from 10 times to literally 100,000 times more powerful than yours, depending on species, you're putting out a huge, intricate, and frankly bizarre chemical broadcast. Bears' noses are estimated at roughly 7 times sharper than a bloodhound's. Wolves can pick up scents from nearly 2 miles away under good conditions. Big cats have a dedicated scent organ in the roof of the mouth. The Jacobson's organ, that lets them essentially taste odors in the air and break down chemical signals at a resolution we can't really fathom. When one of these animals comes across a sleeping human, it's drowning in scent data. And most of that data doesn't match anything it knows. You smell wrong. Synthetic fabrics, nylon, polyester, leftover manufacturing chemicals. Processed food residue from whatever you ate hours ago, snack wrappers in your bag, soap, shampoo, sunscreen, bug spray, a chemical cocktail with zero equivalent anywhere in nature. Strip all that away and underneath you smell like a primate, sure, but not like the deer, the wildebeest, or the rabbit that these predators have spent millions of years learning to recognize and chase. A predator's hunting drive isn't some generic urge to kill anything that moves. It's a precision instrument, calibrated to specific prey. A wolf's predatory trigger responds to the gait and rhythm of hoofed animals. A lion's strike reflex switches on based on the shape, speed, and smell of creatures it's hunted thousands of times. You don't match the template. You're outside the system entirely, and things outside the system tend to provoke caution before aggression in most predators. Then there's the campfire effect, arguably one of the smartest moves our species ever made without fully understanding why. Dice fire is one of the few stimuli that triggers near universal fear across virtually every land animal on Earth. It's not learned. It's not something animals figure out through trial and error. It's innate, baked in from the start. Animals that fled from fire historically survived wildfires. The ones that didn't generally didn't. That fear sits so deep in the genetic code that lab-raised animals who've never encountered fire still show avoidance just from the smell of smoke. Humans got control of fire somewhere between 1 and 2 million years ago, and for most of that span, sleeping near a flame has been the norm. We weren't only doing it for warmth or cooking. We were, probably without realizing it consciously, deploying it as a deterrent. A campfire doesn't just radiate heat, it sends a message into the surrounding dark. Something dangerous lives here, something that controls fire, stay away. Predators have been receiving that message for so long it no longer needs interpreting. It just triggers automatic avoidance. You figured this out before farming, before pottery, before writing, before architecture. Fire came first. Genuinely smart move. Now let's address the biggest misconception about predators, because Hollywood has gotten this wrong for decades. Duh, predators are not reckless. This matters a lot. The popular image of the apex predator as a fearless killing machine, lunging at anything within striking distance, is fiction. Plain fiction. In reality, large predators are extremely selective about what they're willing to engage, because they have to be. A lion doesn't get health insurance. A wolf doesn't get sick leave. One bad injury, a fractured leg, a deep gash, a wrecked eye, can mean a slow, drawn-out death by starvation. There's no vet in the wild. Wounds either heal on their own while the animal still has to hunt to survive, or they don't heal and the animal dies. So every decision about whether to engage something becomes a survival equation. Is the energy payoff worth the injury risk? Is this target familiar enough to predict its behavior? Are the odds of success high enough to justify the effort? A sleeping human fails that equation on multiple fronts. First, unfamiliarity. Predators feel most confident going after prey they understand, animals they've watched hundreds of times, whose escape patterns, blind spots, and panic responses are predictable. A human is a total unknown. We're erratic. We might wake up screaming. We might have weapons nearby. We might have other humans nearby ready to respond. We might thrash in ways nothing in their experience prepared them for. For an animal trying to minimize risk, that uncertainty is a glaring warning sign. Second, our size. Standing upright, humans are genuinely large. Our bipedal stance makes us look bigger and more dominant than animals of similar body weight that move on four legs. Researchers studying predator-prey relationships have pointed out that walking upright functions almost like a built-in threat display. It's the posture gorillas adopt to intimidate, the stance bears take when they want to look formidable. A species that defaults to that posture all the time reads as inherently assertive to other animals. Even asleep, the outline of a human body is unusual enough that it doesn't scream, "Easy meal." Third, and maybe the biggest factor, why bother? There's almost always an easier option available. A predator living in a healthy, intact territory has access to prey it knows well, prey that fits its evolutionary template. Chasing something strange and unpredictable when there's a perfectly good impala or rabbit nearby just doesn't make survival sense. The math doesn't favor it. Here's something rarely discussed. Your sleep isn't as deep as it feels. As human sleep happens in cycles, you descend into deep, slow, wave sleep, then surface back into lighter stages, including REM, where your brain stays surprisingly active. Research shows that during those lighter phases, your brain remains responsive to your surroundings. Sounds still get processed. Unusual noises break through to consciousness much faster than familiar ones. Scientists refer to this as the sentinel function of sleep, the idea that even at rest, animals, humans included, keep a partial watch running. During lighter sleep stages, your brain keeps filtering incoming sensory information and flagging anything that seems off. A branch snapping loudly. A large animal moving through underbrush. A shift in air pressure or smell that comes with something big getting closer. These can pull you out of sleep faster than you'd expect. And that's no accident. Across human history, the people who slept too deeply, who tuned out nighttime threats entirely, simply didn't wake up to pass on their genes. The lighter sleepers, the ones who could go from unconscious to upright in seconds, were the ones who survived to reproduce. Over hundreds of thousands of years, that selection pressure tuned human sleep to stay light enough to respond to danger. We sleep in shorter, lighter cycles than most large mammals, partly because our evolutionary baseline assumed something in the dark might always be worth waking up for. So while unconsciousness feels totally vulnerable, you're actually running a fairly capable early warning system. Imperfect, but real. Efras. Then there's safety in numbers. Task campers are almost never truly alone. We move and sleep in groups, and those groups react collectively to threats. Predators understand group dynamics intimately because their normal prey also lives in groups. A wildebeest tucked inside the herd is far safer than one at the fringe. A fish in the middle of a school is much harder to single out than one that's drifted off alone. Predators don't just attack. They hunt for isolation. They're constantly scanning for the straggler, the one cut off from the pack. A campsite full of sleeping people is a group. And not just any group, but one where a single person waking up and making noise is likely to rouse everyone else. That kind of collective response is exactly what predators are wired to avoid. The risk of a hunt spiraling into a chaotic group reaction makes the whole attempt far less appealing. Now, let's be straight about something. Because it would be irresponsible not to mention it, none of this makes you invincible. The attacks that do happen follow a pretty consistent pattern. They almost always involve some break from the normal rules. An injured predator that can no longer take down its usual prey. A starving predator whose habitat has been destroyed and food sources eliminated. A predator that's had so much human contact, it's lost its inherited fear entirely, which can happen disturbingly quickly once an animal learns to associate people with handouts instead of danger. Or simply an old, declining predator past its physical peak, no longer able to catch what it used to. The Tsavo lions in Kenya are the textbook case. In 1898, 2 male lions killed somewhere between 35 and 135 railway workers over roughly 9 months. The historical count varies, and the legend has grown with retelling. What often gets left out is that these were anomalous lions. Both were manless, which is unusual. One had severe dental damage, likely making its usual prey far harder to catch. They weren't typical lion behavior. They were an outcome of extreme, unusual circumstances. The Champawat tiger, blamed for an estimated 436 deaths across India and Nepal in the early 1900s, was later discovered by hunter Jim Corbett to have been shot in the mouth at some earlier point, shattering 2 canine teeth. It could no longer hunt effectively in its natural way. Injury, combined with shrinking habitat, pushed it toward the only consistently available, physically manageable prey left. That pattern shows up again and again across documented predator attacks near camps or resting humans. Something broke first. The usual calculation shifted. Inherited caution got overridden by desperation, which means the general rule holds almost universally when the ecosystem is healthy. The predator is in good condition, and humans haven't done anything to scramble the signals, like leaving food unsecured, approaching wildlife directly, or skipping the campfire because it seemed pointless. There's one last piece worth saving for the end, because it might be the strangest part of this whole story. We've made the natural world so afraid of us that it's now creating consequences we never anticipated. That same 2019 UC Santa Cruz study didn't stop at documenting puma fear of humans. It traced how that fear ripples outward through the entire food web in ways that are hard to fully manage. When pumas avoid human, heavy zones, deer in those areas face far less predation pressure. Deer numbers climb. Those growing deer populations overgraze the vegetation. Meanwhile, mid-sized predators like coyotes, bobcats, and foxes also pull back from human activity, which lets rodent populations they'd normally keep in check start expanding unchecked. Everything shifts, and it shifts because of us, because of our presence, because the fear we've built up over thousands of years radiates outward like a transmitted signal. We're reshaping the behavior of every predator tier on the continent without ever directly interacting with most of those animals. Purely by existing, by being the thing evolution taught them to fear, one species, one inherited fear, rippling across the entire living world. The most dangerous animal on the planet is the one that mastered fire before it mastered anything else. The one that's been shaping ecosystems not only through what it eats, but through what it scares other things away from eating. the one that sleeps light, moves in groups, and carries 10,000 generations of successful survival written into its DNA. That's you. That's what you are. So next time you're stretched out in a tent somewhere remote, listening to the dark press in against the nylon wall, and you feel that small flicker of ancient unease, that's fine. That instinct is what kept your ancestors alive. But the thing out there in the dark, it's not coming in. It already knows better.